I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Standing outside, peering through the half-open blinds, my heart pounded in my chest like a drum. It was late, too late for anyone to be visiting. But there he was, some guy, standing way too close to Emily. I had just gotten home from a late shift, parking down the street so I wouldn't wake her. She didn't know I was there. I don't even know why I stopped at the window instead of walking in through the front door like I usually did. Something in my gut just told me to look, to check, before entering our home. That's when I caught sight of them. At first, I thought they were just talking. He had his back to me, but I could see her face illuminated by the warm kitchen lights. Her laughter rang out like music, a sound I hadn't heard in a long time. It was a flirty kind of laugh, like the kind that made my stomach twist. She leaned closer to him, brushing against his arm, and I felt an alarming tightness build in my chest. Then he reached out, his fingers lightly brushing against her hand. It wasn't a casual touch. He lingered, his fingers softly tracing the back of her palm. My heart raced as I watched her smile at him, that spark in her eyes setting off alarm bells in my head. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground slipping away beneath me. As they talked, she laughed again, her eyes shining with mischief. I was frozen, unable to tear myself away. He stepped closer, wrapping his arm around her waist, and she didn't stop him. She leaned into him, her body melting against his, completely at ease in his presence. It felt like a betrayal, raw and real, and I could hardly catch my breath. Then they kissed. Not just a quick peck, it was slow, deep, filled with a longing I hadn't felt between us in ages. Her hands found their way to his neck, pulling him in, inviting him closer. I felt a wave of anger and despair wash over me. The kitchen that had once been our sanctuary, where we cooked together and shared quiet moments, was now tainted by this intimate act. He whispered something in her ear, and she giggled again, a sound that cut deep. Her face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning, and I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. What was he telling her? Was it sweet nothings or something more provocative? The way she responded, I hadn't seen that side of her in so long, and it stung to think she could feel that way about someone else. As he pulled her closer, I felt my heart break into a million pieces. It was surreal, standing there in the dark, watching my wife share a moment with another man, as if I didn't even exist. I wanted to scream, to bang on the window, to confront them both. But I was paralyzed, caught in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Suddenly, they shifted positions. He took her by the hand, guiding her back to the counter. She moved with him, laughter spilling from her lips as he leaned in again. I wanted to look away to escape this reality, but I was glued to the spot, my heart pounding in my ears. I couldn't believe this was happening in my home. Then, I saw him lift her onto the counter. She didn't resist. She just let him pull her closer, and I felt a sickening knot tighten in my stomach. They were lost in their own world, completely unaware of me, of the betrayal they were committing. The kitchen that had once been a space for love and laughter now felt ugly, corrupted by what I was witnessing. Every kiss, every laugh, every touch shattered my heart a little more. I stood there, breathing hard, hands trembling. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But as I watched them, I knew I couldn't deny it any longer. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, was wrapped up in another man's arms, completely oblivious to the pain she was causing. When I finally tore myself away from the scene, I stumbled back to my car, my heart racing and hands shaking. I couldn't go inside. Not after seeing that. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, trying to breathe, trying to calm my racing thoughts. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was them, together, in my kitchen, sharing moments that should have been ours. I needed to process what I had just seen, to figure out how I could confront Emily and what I would say. The trust between us felt shattered, and I didn't know if I could ever piece it back together again. I drove around for hours, trying to clear my head, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't escape the image of Emily in the kitchen, wrapped up in that guy. The whole thing played on a loop in my mind, over and over again, like some twisted movie I didn't want to watch but couldn't shut off. I knew I couldn't just go home and pretend like nothing had happened. How could I? But the idea of confronting her, of facing the truth, terrified me. What was I supposed to say? How was I supposed to act? I had no clue. Every time I thought about walking in and looking her in the eyes, I felt this wave of anger and sadness hit me so hard, I thought I might break down right there in the car. Eventually, I found myself parked in a random lot, staring at nothing. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to let out all the hurt and betrayal swirling around inside me, but I just sat there, numb. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. "Hey, where are you? Thought you'd be home by now." The message felt like a slap in the face. She had the nerve to act like everything was fine, like she hadn't just been with someone else in our kitchen. I stared at the screen for a while, my hands itching to reply, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. What would I even say? I knew I couldn't confront her over text. This had to be face to face, as painful as that thought was. I needed to get home. I needed to look her in the eyes and ask the questions that had been burning a hole in my brain since the moment I saw them together. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark, except for the light over the kitchen sink. It was quiet. Too quiet. My stomach churned as I opened the door and stepped inside. The air felt thick, heavy, like the whole place was suffocating under the weight of what I knew. She was in the living room, curled up on the couch with her phone in her hand, completely oblivious to what had just happened. When she saw me walk in, she looked up, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Hey, you're home late," she said, her voice casual, like everything was perfectly normal. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, staring at her, feeling the anger bubble up inside me. How could she act like this? How could she sit there, smiling, when she had been with someone else just hours ago? "Where were you tonight?" I finally asked, my voice cold and distant. She blinked, caught off guard by the question. "I was here. What do you mean?" I could feel my fists clench at my sides, my heart racing in my chest. "I saw you, Emily. I saw you with him." Her face went pale, the color draining from her cheeks as the realization of what I was saying hit her. For a split second, I thought I saw panic in her eyes, but she quickly masked it, straightening up on the couch. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice shaky but trying to sound steady. "You must be mistaken. There's no one—" "Don't lie to me." I cut her off, my voice rising. "I saw you through the window. I saw you with that guy. In the kitchen. Don't act like I didn't." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For a moment, there was nothing but silence between us, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. She looked like she didn't know what to say, like she was scrambling for an excuse. But I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders slumping as the fight left her. "Okay, look, it's not what you think. He's just a friend, and I don't know what happened. It just got out of hand." I stared at her, disbelief flooding through me. "A friend? Are you kidding me? Friends don't kiss each other like that. Friends don't do what you two were doing." She looked down at her hands, fiddling with her phone, avoiding my gaze. "It was a mistake," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was just a one-time thing. I swear." I could feel the anger rising again, like a wave crashing over me. "Don't lie to me, Emily. I saw enough to know this wasn't some one-time thing. How long has this been going on? How long have you been seeing him behind my back?" She shook her head, her voice growing more desperate. "I'm not seeing him. It wasn't like that. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to, but you've been so distant lately, and I felt, I don't know, lonely, I guess." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying to blame me, trying to twist it around like I was the one at fault for her betrayal. "Lonely? You felt lonely, so you decided to cheat on me? That's your excuse?" Her eyes finally met mine, and I could see the guilt, the regret, but also something else, fear. She was scared of what this meant, of what I might do next. "It wasn't like that," she whispered again. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt me?" I cut her off, my voice shaking with anger. "You're my wife, Emily. We've been together for years, and you go behind my back with some guy, and you're telling me you didn't want to hurt me?" She flinched at my words, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." But her apology meant nothing to me. Not anymore. I couldn't unsee what I'd seen, couldn't unhear the things she had said to him. It was too late for sorry. I turned away, pacing the room, trying to catch my breath, trying to keep myself from completely losing it. I felt like I was drowning in anger, in betrayal, and I didn't know what to do with all of it. "You need to tell me the truth," I said, my voice low and controlled even though I was anything but calm. "How long has this been going on? How many times have you been with him?" She wiped at her tears, sniffling as she tried to compose herself. "It was just once. Tonight. I swear it was just a mistake. I was feeling lost and he was there. I know it's no excuse, but I didn't mean for it to happen." I stared at her, searching for any sign that she was telling the truth, but I didn't believe her. I stood there, staring at her, feeling completely disconnected from the person I'd spent years building a life with. Her words hung in the air, weak and empty. She was trying to paint it as a moment of weakness, a mistake, but I knew better. I wasn't stupid. You don't just stumble into a situation like that by accident. Something had led her there, and I needed to know what it was. "What about the messages?" I asked, my voice cold and distant. "You think I didn't notice? You think I didn't feel the change? You've been distracted for months, Emily, always on your phone, smiling at texts that clearly weren't from me." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she froze. It was the look of someone caught in their own web of lies. I wasn't doing anything wrong. The texts didn't mean anything. I couldn't believe it. Even now, after I had caught her in the act, she was still trying to downplay it. I shook my head, frustration boiling over. "They didn't mean anything? Are you serious? So what, you just kiss people for fun now? You're out here playing around while I'm busting my ass trying to keep everything together?" Tears started to fall down her face again, but I wasn't moved by them. Not anymore. "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice shaky. "I didn't plan any of this. I've been feeling disconnected from you, from everything. I just didn't know how to tell you." My stomach twisted at her words. Disconnected. Was that supposed to justify everything? I knew things had been hard lately, but we were supposed to be a team, supposed to figure it out together. And instead of talking to me, instead of trying to fix things, she turned to someone else. "Disconnected?" I repeated, my voice rising. "And you thought cheating would fix that? You didn't even give us a chance. You just threw it all away." She wiped at her tears, sniffling, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry, I don't know why I did it. I hate myself for it, I really do. It's just been so hard and I didn't know how to cope. I wanted to feel something, some kind of sympathy, some understanding, but I couldn't. Not after what I saw." "Hard? You think it hasn't been hard for me? You don't think I've felt the distance too?" "But I never once thought about stepping out, Emily. I stayed. I was here, and you were somewhere else the whole time." She was crying openly now, her face buried in her hands, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. I was too broken myself, too raw. "What happens now?" she whispered through her sobs. "Can we fix this? Please, I'll do anything. I'll cut him off. I'll show you. I don't want to lose you." I had asked myself that same question 1,000 times already. What now? Was there even a way to come back from this? Could I ever look at her the same way again? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together, saw the way she let him touch her, kiss her. It was burned into my memory. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," I finally said, my voice quiet but firm. "I can't trust you, Emily. You broke something between us, and I don't know how to fix it." Her sobs grew louder, more desperate. "Please, don't say that. Don't give up on us. We have so much history. We can't just throw it away." "History?" I shook my head. "Yeah, we have history, but that doesn't mean anything now, does it? You've been living a lie, Emily. How am I supposed to believe anything you say after this?" She reached for me, but I stepped back, keeping the distance between us. I wasn't ready to be close to her, to let her in. Not after everything that had happened. "I'll give you space," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But please, don't walk away from this. Don't walk away from us." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I thought I knew. I saw someone else, someone who had betrayed me, who had lied to me, and I wasn't sure if I could ever get past that. "I need time," I finally said. "I need to figure out what I want." Her eyes filled with hope, but I wasn't sure if it was false hope or something real. All I knew was that I couldn't make any decisions right now. I was too hurt, too confused. She nodded slowly, wiping at her tears again. "Okay. I'll give you time. I'll prove to you that I can change. I swear." But as I walked out of the room, leaving her there on the couch, I couldn't help but wonder if anything would ever be enough to make things right again. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I wanted her to change, because deep down, a part of me knew that this was it, that there was no coming back from this. I climbed into bed, pulling the covers over me, but sleep wouldn't come. The thoughts of her with him, the betrayal, it was all too much. The silence of the house was deafening, a reminder of the emptiness that had taken root in my heart. Maybe she would change. Maybe she would do everything she could to make it up to me. But would it matter? Because sometimes love just isn't enough.